Now, though, is it time to scrap the BBC licence fee? New figures show 300,000 more households have stopped paying the licence fee, and that's a loss of £50 million for the corporation. As a result, it's going to have to overhaul the way its payment system works. We don't know yet how that's going to work, but BBC bosses have ruled out a subscription or ad-based service. Currently, households pay £174 per year. The money raised pays for BBC shows and services like the iPlayer. But after a difficult year, is it time to look at scrapping it completely? Full disclosure here, I've worked for the BBC for 30 years and I believe wholeheartedly in its founding principles. Not everybody feels like that. Lowri, changing the way we all contribute to the BBC does run the risk.
I don't want to contribute. I mean, it should be run as a business, like every other broadcast.
I said that's what we do at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I don't like. I don't choose it. Contribute.
If we change
suggest that I have a choice in this.
Well, if we change the way it's funded,
right.
If we change the way it's funded, are we risking ruining something that's a big part of all of our lives?
No, I think it has to change. I think the world's changed. Again, I look at my kids and they watch very little BBC and they're outraged to have to pay a subscription. I think that it should be like Netflix or Disney or whatever. You have a choice. And that will mean that certain programmes that people don't want to watch will not be made. Well, there we are. I just think it's the sign of the times. And I think it's outrageous that they prosecute people. Often these people are single parents, often women, get prosecuted for not having a licence. I think it's not supportable anymore.
I mean, you talk about Netflix. A lot of these services didn't exist 20 years ago. The BBC's been part of our lives for over 100 years now.
Yeah.
So
what? Life, as we're told, life changes.
We just all talked about how important swan-upping was. We just
it cost me 175 quid a
sat around this table and said how wonderful it is men in red coats go out in rowing skiffs. We're talking about something that people use every day in their millions, and not just in the UK. 450 million people worldwide use the BBC service. All that soft power, you're ready to get rid of that because you'd rather have it looking at Netflix.
No, I just think that we have to be honest about the way the market has changed. And there is a lot of programming that I don't want to pay for on the BBC, and I resent the fact that I have to pay for things that I don't agree with. So I should have a choice, and everybody should have a choice.
Okay, Marvyn, why should I pay for, I don't know, Radio 3? I do listen to Radio 3. Why should I pay for Gardener's Question Time when I don't listen to Gardener's Question Time?
I think the BBC is incredible. If you ever travel abroad, the one thing that they talk about is that you have the BBC, don't you? People lean in and they understand that it's a beacon. I liken it very much to the NHS. It's one of the greatest things that Britain has created, and it deserves its own protection and support.
I'm sorry to keep you so short, but we're going to go straight back to you after the break. Don't go anywhere. But now we're going back to the BBC licence fee and whether we should keep paying it. And I did say I'd come back to you, Marvyn, because I cut you a bit short there. There is now this huge spread of BBC services. So it is typical. We're going to look and say, well, that's not for me, because we don't have like the two TV channels and maybe 4 radio channels.
I go on subscription platforms all the time and I'll spend 20 minutes trying to find a show to watch and then end up moving to something else, right? Because the BBC network, you're talking about so many radio stations, local news, you're talking about the website. These are like just, and the core channels. It's a very core and essential service for the price of less than Netflix and less than a month's of council tax. I don't see what the big fuss is. It's not going to be for everybody and it won't be perfect. And the main thing is it has to be accountable and it has to stick with the times. And I just think it's done as good a job as it could do. BBC Sounds is great. If you go on BBC Sounds, you could spend hours on there listening to audio content from the beginning of time. It's just a great news archive. We need a trusted independent source that just gives information to the world and guides us all.
Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be chaos. Don't necessarily trust BBC.
But I have a strong reason as to why that is.
It's very spectacular mistakes.
It's the most used news source
and if it's that fantastic, people will pay for it. If it's
BBC One News is the most used news source in the country. And that's before we get onto the world service. Listen, I want to look at some of the alternatives that we could have to the current licence fee funding, the unique way in which the BBC is currently funded, which they always say, have a look at this. Alternatives to the licence fee, we could have a subscription model like Netflix, as you're saying, broadband levies, that's interesting. So let's
push the cost of all our broadband up a bit higher then. That's how that would work.
I mean, there you go.
What does broadband levies mean?
So what we're saying is,
we'd pay extra.
when you get your internet, there's a little precept, a little bit on top of that, that then goes to fund the BBC as well. As most of us, we're not getting terrestrial TV through antenna so much anymore. So that's the way they're going to do it. Through advertising, of course, the downside of that would be that other advertisers, other platforms would lose a lot of that income as well. Through tax, income tax, you'd have a little precept on top that we'd all pay. Government grants. So, of course, if you get your money from the government, there's every chance that the government might want to say something about how, broadcasting happens, and often governments.
Basically, all of those are not to choice of the person that I get. Tax, broadband levy, government grants, all of those, the customer has no choice. The money gets paid.
Well, that is if we work on the basis that it's all or nothing. And of course, one of the models they're saying is core services, that's paid for.
Which I think most people would support.
And then on top of that, you've got subscription fees for some things. I wonder if that's where we'll end up. Anyway, doesn't matter what we think, it matters what you think. Heather's in Hampshire. What do you think, Heather? Is it time to scrap the licence fee, or are you happy to pay it?
Good morning, Matt. Good morning, team. Yes, I just wanted to make the point that I'm not on the internet, so there's an awful lot I can't access on the television. And once something is streamed, it's lost to me. An awful lot of programs are lost. And so for me personally, my choice has gone right down to much reduced. What I would like would be a reduced rate of license fee for people who aren't on the internet.
Okay, so you'd have a little analogue tariff for yourself, for people like yourself who get things but can't access that huge range of services that we talked about earlier.
And it's just that the stuff we can access is streamed off before you know it, and then you can't get it again. It's gone.
Okay, Heather,
so a program you're watching.
Out of interest, why do you? Is it out of choice that you're not on the internet, or is it limited where you are?
I'm quite. Oh no, everybody's got it. I won't give my age away, but it's quite a lot, and I don't want to spend my remaining years taking on a new technology, which I'm completely non-technical. I enjoy my life, and I don't want to do it.
Okay,
fair.
Understood. Listen,
and,
thanks.
The other point was that the BBC seems to have lost its ability to make new drama and new comedy. There's no really belly-laughing programmes anymore.
Okay.
And I wouldn't mind paying a full fee if there was something really good, funny.
Heather, I have to say you might find some of those on the streaming channels, because that's where they tend to make them. But then if you've got no access to those, then you might not know about them. I have to say that. Anyway, thank you for your call, Heather. You make a very good point. Let's take another one. Jim's in Manchester. How about you, Jim? Time to scrap the licence fee or what?
Good morning, Matt. Yes, just my opinion. First of all, can I say I agree 100% with Lowri that I object strongly to paying a lot of money for something that I don't use, and I have no choice in what I do with that money.
Jim, if you don't use it, you don't have to pay for it. If you genuinely don't use the BBC, live streaming from live broadcasts from other broadcasters, yes, that is covered by the licence fee. Is that what you object to?
I understand that. No, let me just clarify what I say. I do use a streaming service. My wife and I watch about two things on the BBC and nothing else.
What are they, just out of interest? What are they, Jim?
The Apprentice, purely for entertainment value, and Dragon's Den. But absolutely nothing else. We certainly don't watch the news, because I take issue with what Marvyn said, that the BBC's reputation, it used to be a model worldwide for impartial and unbiased broadcasting, but that's been called into question several times. It doesn't have the best reputation, and I don't even have to comment on events of the last week, where we keep getting assurances that the BBC can keep its house in order when it plainly can't. And I know these things are kind of not to be discussed, but this is licence money that's being paid out, and it calls into question the BBC's integrity. I just think the licence fee is such an outmoded thing now. I get the fact that a lot of old people depend on it as a lifeline. It's not subsidised for them.
If the licence fee's outdated, how do we guarantee the future of the BBC? What's the new model that you'd suggest?
Okay, if the quality is, they keep talking, the argument that keeps getting promoted is that our quality is such good and the content is such high quality, blah, blah, blah. If it's so good, then changing to a subscription model shouldn't be any issue. That's my opinion. We pay for everything else. We pay for streaming services. We get the choice of what we pay for and what we watch. But I don't like this arbitrary sort of license fee that we pay for. I don't listen to the BBC radio. I don't listen to a lot of things. And like I say, I only watch 2 things on BBC iPlayer.
Okay. Listen, thanks for your call. I mean, the subscription model, Marvyn, what's your problem with that? Because Jim's saying, you know, you have a choice. With everything else, you have a choice, and he doesn't use it. He has to pay it to watch other channels.
First of all, he says he's using it already. So he's using it for 2 different shows, which is he's right, and he's paying for it. So that's what he's paying for. If he chooses to do more, he can consume more. That's just his choice. The other thing is that it is a global brand, and it is something that people do trust internationally, and they actually don't doubt when they are international. They take it as a real reference point. I think the last thing in terms of a subscription model is that you cannot build the infrastructure the BBC has and sustain it based on someone that can unsubscribe in 30 days, resubscribe in 30 days.
What do we lose then? Do we lose the big events? Or?
No, you're pretty much going to lose it all, because if you look at Netflix's model, it's being sustained by external capital. It's not sustained by the amount of money coming in. And so they're making bets on the future that in 10 years' time it will be the dominant force. We can't do that with a public service. So most of the radio stations, pretty much all of the TV stations, all of the news platforms and support and international stuff that we do will be gone, right? And I'm saying that is more damaging to the public conversation, because we've had other countries who have private news broadcasters, and all they do is create these polarizing divides between left and right. And actually, most of us are kind of in the middle, and we just want some information to go about our day.
Hang on, I need to push back at that. I think we are in a world where the whole landscape of broadcasting is changing, and actually the kind of alternative, whether it's Facebook, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Substack, there is a whole other ecosystem growing up that the BBC doesn't seem to have noticed, and that is people are choosing.
We've also changed because we become more polarised. But also, trying to find that centre space is more difficult.
But I think because but I don't think the BBC does occupy that centre space.
Let's take one more. I really want to hear from Maria before we move on. Maria, do you think the licence fee needs scrapping? What do you reckon?
No, it doesn't, and not in a rude way to your panel there. We're talking about the British broadcasting and what they're doing. We can watch TV programmes that we don't have to wait for an advertisement and things like that. So we have to pay a little bit towards it so we can watch these things. And it's important that we can do that.
OK. Jim's suggestion is that he wants to watch the telly, but he's only got 2 programmes on the BBC he's interested, and for that he has to pay £174 a year. What would you say to Jim?
Well, if Jim does have things where he could get someone to record it or something else, you could do that. But we have to remember, we're talking about the British broadcasting. Unfortunately, because they can't take money for advertising and things like that the other channels do, because they have breaks and things like that, where they make the money and this, that and the other to give it us for free, then we do have to pay something for that.
OK. Listen, thanks, Maria. Thanks for your call. Thanks for all your calls on this.